It is said in the epic Mahabharata itself that it was written by Lord Ganesha at the request of Maharshi Veda Vyasa. But some historians consider Ganapathy as a later interpolation into Mahabharata. The assessment they put forward is going to be scrambled with what you are about to understand. To understand it, we have to evaluate the scenario in which Veda Vyasa asks Ganesha to write the poem while he recites. Although many people know what the scenario was, it would be imperative to mention it here. According to Mahabharata, Ugra Sharva meets some sages in Himalayas. He speaks to them how the epic was composed. A poem was formed in the mind of Krishna Dvapayana or Veda Vyasa. That poem contained all the divine mysteries in the Vedas, existence and non-existence, and all the caution and awareness needed by those from heaven to this earthly world. When this poem was formed in Vyasa's mind, Lord Brahma appeared before Vyasa. When he told Brahma about his concern that there was no one on earth who could write down the poem while he recites it, Brahma advised him to rely on Lord Ganesha. After Brahma disappeared, when Vyasa called Ganapathy with his mind, Ganapathy appeared before him. On hearing Vyasa's request, Ganapathy put forward a condition that Vyasa should recite the verses so fast that he could write without stopping. Hearing this, Veda Vyasa also made a condition that Ganapathy should first comprehend the meaning of the verses he write. There begins the composition of what was to become the world's greatest poem. The first name of that work, which had 24,000 verses, was Bharat. According to Mahabharata, at the time of composition, Ugra Sharva, Veda Vyasa son Shuka, and Sanjay were in the hermitage of Maharshi Veda Vyasa. It is told in Mahabharata that, though the world knows Mahabharata from sage Vaisampayana, it is through Ugra Sharva that everyone knows how Mahabharata was composed. Ugra Sharva, Veda Vyasa son Shuka and Sanjay were at the hermitage of Vyasa while he was reciting and Ganapathy was writing it. Ugra Sharva says that the verses were so tough that they were literally unable to comprehend. Ugra Sharva says that Shuka also felt the same way, and that he was not very sure about what Sanjay was thinking. Ugra Sharva comes to this conclusion after listening to Maharishi's recitation up to about 8,800 verses. Thus, Veda Vyasa completes the composition of Bharat in 24,000 verses through Ganapathy. But Ugra Sharva makes it clear that introduction or index of the work were not included in those 24,000 verses, and it was added by Veda Vyasa through 150 verses which he composed later. After that, Veda Vyasa first teaches those 24,000 verses written by Ganapathy to his son Shuka, and then to other students with similar qualification. Veda Vyasa later organizes the 24,000 verses, which were very divine, very dense in its content, and which no one can comprehend, into 60 lakh verses, lessening the density of the content. Out of these, 30 lakh verses were given to the gods, 15 lakh verses to those in the ancestral world, 14 lakh verses to the Gandharvas, and 1 lakh verses to humans. From all these, it should be deduced that the poem that aroused in Vyasa's mind contained 60 lakh verses. No human can write all these verses while Vyasa recite. That's why Vyasa searched for someone else to write. Thus Ganapathy comes into the scenario. Because of the condition put forward by Ganapathy, Vyasa had to shrink the entire poem, so that Ganapathy finds it difficult to understand the meaning of each verse, thus Vyasa getting more time to recite. Thus, Veda Vyasa reduced 60 lakh verses to 24,000 verses, and recited them to Ganapathy. When Ganapathy comes to write as per the will of Brahma, it would be logical to assume that, in the eyes of Ganapathy's wisdom, Ganapathy does not know anything about what Vyasa was about to recite. Vyasa also hid from Ganapathy what subject he is going to recite about by excluding introduction and index. Thus Ganapathy was completely unaware of what Vyasa was about to recite, yielding more time for Vyasa. So it should be understood that Ganapathy didn't start writing when Vyasa started reciting, so that Ganapathy could get an idea about Vyasa was reciting about. In that case, when a poem that was supposed to be written in 6 million verses was reduced to 24,000 verses. The meaning of each verse becomes so intense. Please remember what told until here. Now to the evidence put forward by historians. The historians tell that Ganapathy was not found in the oldest manuscripts available. They tell that the later North Indian traditions include Ganapathy in Mahabharata. Based on this argument, they raise other related arguments too, substantiating their interpretation. Describing what led to such a wrong interpretation by historians is sufficient to justify Ganapathy was not a later inclusion into Mahabharata. Recall what we have discussed before. According to Mahabharata itself, Ugra Sharva tells about how Mahabharata was composed after the epic was known to the world through sage Vasampayana. Before Ugra Sharva started telling about how the composition took place, it is clear that Mahabharata was preached among the people through sage Vasampayana. So initially Mahabharata was spread without any reference to Ganapathy. Later, after Ugra Sharva, the verses referring to Ganapathy was included. Now we can see two manuscripts of Mahabharata spreading among people. Oldest copy without Ganapathy and later edition with Ganapathy. This is misinterpreted by historians as later interpolation. The historians tells that Ganapathy is found in later manuscripts, particularly in North Indian traditions. Mahabharata tells that Ugra Sharva had gone to meet sages in Himalayas. To them, Ugra Sharva explains what had happened. Actually, that's why historians find Ganapathy included in manuscripts from later North Indian traditions. Thus, in a spiritually logical perspective, the shrinking of 60 lakh verses into 24,000 verses points out at condition put forward by Ganapathy, and then Ganapathy writing Mahabharata. While in a materialistically logical perspective, Ganapathy found in manuscripts from later North Indian traditions, apart from older manuscripts available, proves that what Ugra Sharva told is true. Thus Ganapathy wrote Mahabharata is a logically proved material fact. I think I have distinctly conveyed the proof for Ganapathy had written Mahabharata. Comment what you feel about this.